I here.
Okay.
A lot of parents are concerned about the August 1st deadline in applying for virtual academy. Is that a hard deadline, especially because the decision on which scenario GCS is even picking isn't coming out until the 28th?
Yeah, I think, we want parents to, we're encouraging people, we know that they still have time and, we may be able to extend the deadline beyond August 1st, but we also have to build our staffing plan and make sure we have the right number of teachers for the students who register. So we are encouraging parents to register if they are interested in the virtual option, understanding that we do have a Board of Education meeting on July 28th and the August 1st deadline. So we are encouraging people to register as soon as they can, but we understand and recognize that parents are weighing lots of different options right now. And just like options are out there on the table, public health guidance is also changing, and that's something that we know families will be taking into account.
And if you do register, is it a hard you can't back out, or can I register my kid and then pull them out depending upon what GCS, moves forward with?
Sure. I mean, it's just like registering for any other school. So the registration process is the same. We would ask that once the school year begins, that students stay for the full first semester. However, if a parent changed their mind after an initial registration before a school year starts and says, I really just want to go to my home school, we would accommodate that. But we do think once the school year starts, it's best for students to stay for teaching and learning practices, for what's developmentally appropriate, for them to stay enrolled through the first semester, or towards the end of this or the end of the school year.
What are the results from the surveys you guys sent out to parents? What is kind of like the biggest concerns and challenges that parents had with virtual learning during the past couple of months of school?
So the full survey results will be presented as part of our July 28th Board of Education meeting. Those parent surveys are still being collected. We're making sure that we have a sample that represents our entire community. We do know that what we've heard from parents is they want to make sure that schools are safe places to be. Things like having hand sanitizer available was important to families who completed our survey. We also know that they want a streamlined process for any remote learning. So they don't want a platform that looks different for one class than another. They want to be able to practice navigating online learning before it begins, and they really want to maintain relationships with teachers during the time. So that's some of the trends that we heard as we began asking parents, but we expect our full survey results at the end of the month.
And what are you all doing? Oh,
Sorry, go ahead.
What are you all doing to ensure that every teacher, knows how to work Canvas? I know some parents had expressed some concerns with that. Are you guys taking the time out to train the teachers, or helping students and their parents also learn the system?
Yes, so we have had teacher professional learning opportunities that began in June. We've had more than 6,600 people participating in professional learning since the beginning of the summer. We are also currently building a bank of how-to videos for our parents to access, and we'll also be able to offer some socially distant, safe opportunities in conjunction with Guilford Parent Academy for parents to come in, practice logging on, see what it looks like, and have specific examples. So if I'm a sixth grade parent, here's what I can expect. If I'm a first grade parent, here's what I can expect. And so we're building a blend of opportunities for both our parents and our teachers to ensure that we have a smooth transition regardless of what the beginning of the 2021 year school looks like. It won't be perfect, but it will be better than when we had to turn it around over a weekend in mid-March.
Could I jump in here with a couple of questions?
Sure.
Thank you. How many people, how many families have already signed up, and what did you learn from that quick turnover last March that you have implemented to make things better this upcoming virtual academy? Thank you.
Sure. So people are registering at this moment as we speak. We have more than 2,000 students who have registered, less than 3,000. Of course, that number is changing and will change during the course of just this call. What we learned during the quick turnaround is that we are not a one-to-one district. We have a long way to go in terms of having adequate technology for our teachers and for our families. And so we've spent a lot of time focusing on the professional learning and procuring devices. We learned that we have a connectivity gap that speaks to disparities that exist within our community, and that's something that the school system cannot fix by itself. That's something that we're going to need community support for. So we need to work on connectivity. We need to work on streamlining resources and having common expectations and dashboards across teachers so that parents aren't navigating multiple different things for different courses. And we need to make sure that students are clear about expectations and that they don't vary greatly from one class to another. So those are things that we've taken into account for our summer planning.
Could I follow up and ask how many, I think there were numbers you put out at some point in time on how many students did not tune in when you guys went to remote learning last spring? Was there a number of how many people were not either able or just not willing to log in and take part of the distance learning?
It varied over the course, so it kind of ebbed and flowed through the course, but we were between 3 and 7% of our student population who were not able or did not access online instruction. We did have schools go door to door to make sure that they were able to recover as many students as possible. And our numbers went as high as nearly 90% accessing even in the last weeks of school, which is a higher rate than across the nation and the state. And so we do feel like we made some progress during that time, but also learned lessons for entry into the 2021 school year.
What kind of measures are you guys doing to make sure that you close that connectivity gap going into the next school year? I know that there had been talk about buses driving into neighborhoods as hotspots.
Yeah, so again, you know, our superintendent reminds us frequently that in the year 2020, internet connectivity should be a public commodity, much like electricity. It really is a gap in access for many parts of our community. We have to remember that we have a large rural area. We're 644 square miles, and connectivity continues to remain an issue. We are putting things in place like the hotspots, turning on outdoor internet connectivity at some of our larger rural high schools where people could access in the parking lot. The city of Greensboro, in partnership with some of our local colleges, including the North Carolina A&T State University, University of North Carolina at Greensboro, have issued an RFP for widespread community connectivity. And so we're hopeful that that request for proposals will yield some results and would mitigate for some lack of connectivity that continues to plague our community.
Hi, Whitney. It's Jessie. How you doing?
Hey, Jessie.
I wanted to ask about. It seems like there've been a little bit of back and forth about the caps on the virtual academies. I think at first you'd said no caps, and then there was a meeting earlier in July where you guys were talking about caps, and now it sounded like you're talking about not having caps again. When you did have caps, what was the reasoning for that? And then also, why did that change?
Sure. So when you apply for a new school number with the state of North Carolina, you have to project your enrollment. And this is unlike opening a regular brick and mortar school, right? So we're in a pandemic. We haven't opened a virtual school during a pandemic before. And so we did initially have that we were projecting 2,000 students in our elementary virtual academy and 2,000 in our secondary. Quickly, when we put out the word about virtual academies, we heard that many parents were interested. We did not want any parent to be turned down. So this is merely a registration. This is not an application, and there is no cap on the registration for our virtual academy programs.
Well, why was there a cap earlier though?
When you apply for a new school code with the Department of Public Instruction, you put your anticipated enrollment. That's the number that was shared initially. But once we saw the community support, we lifted that number and merely made it a registration, not an application process. So there is no cap for either program.
What does the application process look like? Are there screenings to make sure that each student, is the ideal candidate that they can succeed doing a virtual academy, or what do parents need to know?
It's merely a student registration, just like you would register in a brick and mortar school. So there is not a list of criteria, but it's just a registration process as if you were going into a front office at a school and during a normal school year to register for what school looks like.
Can instruction be accessed on the weekend? I know a lot of working parents are concerned about not being there 5 days a week, even though they're essentially supposed to be coaches and cheerleaders, not teachers for their students.
Sure. So it's a combination, and it's called asynchronous and synchronous instruction. And so there will be opportunities for students to access recordings of live instruction if they're not able to access it at the moment that the live instruction is being delivered. But we know from digital best practices around the nation and internationally that you have to provide a blend. You have to provide things that students can do on their own, but it's really important to have that time with teachers. It'll also include opportunities for small group instruction and individual check-ins with teachers to make sure that learning's going well and if any tweaks need to be made. Feedback's important in the digital learning environment, just like it is in the face-to-face environment. So we expect all of those components to be in place.
So predominantly this will be live instruction though for about 6 hours a day?
A blend. So I would say of the 6 hours, you may have, a 40-minute math lesson 3 to 4 days a week, and you may have some reading instruction targeted to meet your needs 3 to 4 days a week for a set period of time. And then in between, you're completing some independent work that you can then have feedback on or a check-in with a small group. So it's really a blend that includes both live and recorded opportunities.
How will testing be implemented?
So we have not received any changes from the state on testing. There are students in virtual schools follow the same state accountability measures as students who are in brick and mortar schools. At the end of the 1920 school year, the state waived testing requirements. We have not heard that any requirements have been waived at the state level as of yet, but whatever applies to our virtual academy students will also apply to all of our other students in Guilford County.
Will
Outside of
85%
connectivity, is there anything you're telling parents that perhaps their child is not suited best for a virtual academy?
No.
And if connectivity is an issue for them, does that rule them out of participating in the virtual academies?
It doesn't rule them out. We share with parents during the registration process that connectivity is critical in accessing the learning environment. And where we can, we will try to help parents if they have struggles with connectivity, but we cannot guarantee as a school system that we can provide connectivity for every house. That's why this is more of a community issue that we've taken on. And so we do make sure that they're aware that we do need to have connectivity as available. So things like the hotspot buses can't cover all of Guilford County. And so we're working with people on a case-by-case basis through that, but being upfront about the fact that access to technology and connectivity are something that have to be in place for the digital experience to be successful.
So this is a completely free online learning academy, but parents do need to provide their own Wi-Fi and their own devices unless, with certain exceptions.
Correct.
Do you have an anticipated number that you're expecting? Have you guys ballparked this? What your kind of turnout you're expecting for a virtual academy by the end of this month?
I think we don't have a number. We know that as of now, we have between 2,000 and 3,000. We know that as public health circumstances change, these numbers are very likely to change. And so anytime there's a governor update or we remain in phase 2, or perhaps we shift to a different phase, I think we could see fluctuation. We know that we'll ensure our staffing accommodates the number of students who are registered prior to the start of the school date. But no, we don't have an expected exact number at this point in time.
And do you have teachers who would rather be in the virtual academy? Is that how you're getting them? Perhaps teachers who would rather not be in a classroom take this option?
We do, and we also have teachers who are at risk, who fall in at-risk categories. And so we want to make sure that these teaching and learning opportunities are given initially to those people who meet at-risk categories, but the application is open to other teachers as well.
Are you hiring any additional staff, or you're trying to move within the staff already?
In terms of additional teaching positions?
Yeah, just to help with the virtual academies.
We always need teachers. The pandemic has not changed the fact that there's a teacher shortage in our state and in our country. And so our application is available to anyone who's licensed and meets criteria for teaching, whether it's elementary or secondary.
About how many teachers do you all need?
I don't have that number at this point in time. Would get that from Human Resources. We typically hire about 500 teachers a year. And so if you I don't think that that number's changed given the current circumstances that we're under. And even if every teacher from every local university came to Guilford County Schools to teach, we would still be 250 teachers short.
A couple of parents voiced some confusion just because there was a recent panel with the CDC and 5 doctors and pediatricians, and they were saying that in-person education is best for children, and so parents are a little confused. If you could just break down for our viewers, why virtual education at this point is what you all may decide on and that sort of thing.
So I think that's a family decision, right? That's not something that the school system's going to say is that this is the right thing for this student and this is the right thing for this student. I think that from just research that digital learning and remote opportunities through virtual academies can do lots of really interactive things. There's virtual field trips, there's ways to connect with other students, there's ways to get targeted small group instruction and independent instruction with support from a teacher. But it's also different and not the same as a face-to-face learning experience in a school building. And so there are kids whose learning styles lend themselves well to the digital experience, and there are certain students who may do better in a face-to-face environment. It's why we want to make sure people understand what the differences are in virtual academy instruction, and then the opportunity for face-to-face instruction when that is able to resume, so that they can make the best decision for their students. So students who learn by being face-to-face and who struggle with accessing content online may be better suited to remain in a face-to-face learning ability. Other students who can follow a learning path and engage online through a computer may be best suited for the virtual academy. But we know that families are going to make the decisions that are available for their students, and we want to make sure that they understand the range of options that are on the table.
If a student starts off in the virtual academy and then you all are noticing this kid is not succeeding the right way, we need to move them to, let's say we go back to in-person learning, is that something you all would do, or you will just let them stay in the virtual academy?
We would never make a placement decision about a student without working with the family to do that. There will be counselors and principals and teachers to be able to help put certain supports in place for students who may struggle in the virtual academy. We're asking that students who enroll stay for the first semester or for the year, so they're not back and forth. We know that that's not good for student learning across multiple schools in one school year, but that would be something that would be done in conjunction with a family. We would never just remove a student from an environment and put them in another, regardless of the situation.
What are you doing to make parents aware that the virtual academy exists?
So we have a frequently asked questions on our website. That's getting updated as questions come in. We're making sure that we update our frequently asked questions document. I think any media opportunities like today, we're certainly accessing and helping get the word out there. Using our social media platforms to push out, making sure our current principals understand so that they can answer parent questions. And we'll continue those media opportunities and broadcasting through our regular platforms throughout the coming weeks. We do want families who are considering registration to go ahead and do that so that we can program plan as accurately as possible.
Dr. Oakley, is that email address still available? I saw a couple of parents complain that they got a bounce back from that email where you could ask questions along. GCS put that out on their Facebook page along with the fact sheet.
I know right now on gcsnc.com, there's a banner that says Virtual Academy. And if you click on it, the frequently asked question document and all other related documents are there and updated for the public.
Okay, and are AP classes going to be available for Virtual Academy?
They are.
Whitney, if you sign up if a family signs up their student for Virtual Academy, does that guarantee that their student will get virtual or online learning for the school year if they want it?
Yes.
I know you'd mentioned several plans for connectivity and for devices with local colleges and funding requests. What happens if none of that comes into fruition?
Yeah, I think it's a reality. We hope that the request for proposals and work with the city of Greensboro was a part of that request for proposal process. We are working with our faith-based partners and community agencies to be able to set up hubs for students who need to come somewhere to safely access the internet. We've got many faith-based partners who have offered space and connectivity so that we'll be able to set that up for students depending on what reentry looks like. Again, we'll continue to mobilize our hotspot buses. We'll be able to turn on the hotspots that are in parking lots, such as like at Eastern Guilford High School, where you could drive to the parking lot and access, knowing that we want to the fullest extent possible to provide connectivity for our students, but our county has a long way to go. There's been some neighboring counties. I know Durham worked with Duke University, and they ran fiber cabling so that they were able to provide all of their public housing communities with internet. And so we're continuing to work on that, but we're going to need the community support. That's not something that the school district is able to do alone.
And what about for devices as well?
Yes, we're continuing to procure devices for students. We distributed nearly 17,000 last year. Guilford Education Alliance helped us rally a group of donors who were able to actually purchase devices for students to keep. In addition, we've purchased some devices over the summer and are continuing to do that and update devices so that we can redistribute them to students and families. We also know that there's students and families who some have their own devices that can also be used during this time. So principals will work with families to make sure that students who don't have devices are able to get those as we prepare for this upcoming school year.
Thank you for your time.
I was wondering a little bit about, in one of the press releases that went out, it mentioned the virtual academies being, gave physical locations for 2 of the virtual academies. Are you saying that all the teachers would then go in and have an office in that building, or is that just where the principals would be located? I wasn't sure kind of what that meant. Saying
see, that's again part of that state application. So you have to insert an address for where the school will operate out of, right? And so the office will operate out of that building or on that campus. It can also be an opportunity for individual parent or advisory check-ins following safety protocols if we need to have any face-to-face work. We'll work with teachers based on their own individual needs and what instruction looks like to decide where they will best be able to deliver instruction. The nice thing about virtual learning is that it can be high quality regardless of where it's delivered from, but some teachers prefer to set up in a classroom and to have classroom space and things available to deliver instruction. So that will vary based on the teacher, the program, and the level of student that the teacher's instructing.
Do you know how many devices you all still need?
I do not know. There's no way that we're ever going to know that because family circumstances change. It is something that we will work as students register for the virtual school program to make sure that we're able to understand their own device and connectivity situation. But that's not a number that we're ever going to have a clear answer to, just because we're talking about 73,000 kids and changing circumstances every single day.
I was wondering if you or Dr. Schillis or Jansen might be willing to kind of walk us through what parents are seeing when they get into that registration. I'm not a parent, so I can't see. And I'd heard there were some different options that people could pick that I thought might be confusing to folks. Like this, I was hearing some options about when you would want to receive the instruction and stuff like that. I don't know if you could bring that up.
So the application itself is really kind of responding to questions. In terms of the programs that people are registering for, I think there was some initial confusion between the differences between high school and elementary and middle school. So elementary school is the K-5 e-learning virtual academy. The middle school program is the e-learning university prep for grades 6 through 8. And then high school parents would register and students would register in an academy program. They remain assigned to their home school. So our high school students aren't changing schools when they register. They can register for an online program and remain at their home high school. I can find out if there's anything else to weigh in on that one.
I was just wondering if it's possible for you to screen share, maybe one of you to screen share to kind of show us what kind of your choices are when you go through.
I can screenshot and email that as a follow-up. It's not something that I'm prepared to do right this minute.
Sure, that would be great. Yeah, because I heard you, I guess like that there's options about like you could pick, like, do you want your kid educated at night or asynchronous or like synchronous or, I can't see what these options are. It's kind of what I was saying.
I hear you. I'm not sure that you choose that on the registration form itself, but we do know that synchronous, asynchronous, and recorded will all be a part of the virtual learning experience, but we will share the application with you so that you're able to see it. Not application, registration form. Thank you. Got about 3 minutes if there's any last questions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
How do you anticipate that what would the similarity or difference be in being in the virtual academy versus the, what virtual experience a student might wind up having during the regular school year? And I'd be interested in that both for high school and for younger levels, if there's a difference there.
I mean, I think it's really about the access, the tools for teaching and learning to facilitate the process. We're trying to empower students to connect and interact with peers. The online learning pathways will look a little bit different in the virtual academy than they would when we're delivering the traditional program. So I think a lot of the questions have been around like, well, what if we start remotely and I'm in a traditional middle school? How does that look different than if I switch and enroll in this virtual academy? And I think the difference is really just the digital tools that are used to facilitate the learning process. And so the digital tools that will be used for the virtual academy are designed for virtual learning. What we're using to deliver instruction in the traditional school program are aligned to the state standards, but look a little bit more like the traditional school program that we know it delivered online. So I think the difference will be in the tools that are used to facilitate instruction and the flexibility that's provided in the virtual academy option. Whereas the traditional school program will follow the regular school day, much like it has in the past. So you could go to your virtual PE, you could go to, but it will be delivered by a classroom teacher in a more traditional format.
And
what about for high school students? Are you really encouraging them to sign up for this if they want virtual learning, or do they not need to worry about that so much since you all are recommending that all students, all high school students, do the virtual instruction?
So we have not recommended that all high school students do the virtual instruction. What we are recommending is that, so there are online course options for high schools, even when we're not in a pandemic. And so we don't know yet what option our Board of Education will land on in terms of serving students. But we do want our high school students to understand their range of options. And so they can register for this academy program and remain assigned to their home high school, because many, many high school courses are already offered online. They can also choose to remain as they are in their traditional high school program and will participate in whatever platform of learning, whether it's face-to-face or remote, that our Board of Education weighs in on July the 28th. We're also talking to our eligible 11th and 12th graders about accessing courses at GTCC through the College and Career Promise program so that they're able to take college courses and earn course credit debt-free. So those are the three options on the table for high school families. We're not trying to sway them one way or the other, but we want to make sure that they understand the opportunities that are out there.
It's 11. So I apologize. It's 11:30. I know Whitney has several other meetings to get to today. So I think that's going to have to be it right now.
Okay, and we'll follow up and send a screenshot of that registration form so that people are on the same page.
Yes.
James, and we'll send that to you to push out.
Perfect.
Okay, thanks for your
I
time.
was wondering
Thank you
if
so much.
Is there, I noticed Dr. Chillis might have been on here earlier. Is there an opportunity to speak further with her?
Maybe at some point, just not today. But like I can work on trying to set something up.
thanks so much for arranging this and for spending the time with us.
Thanks.
Thank
Take
you.
care.
Thank you.